Hello, boys and girls. Lord Hawkeye here again. Given that I've been too preoccupied with my own endeavors to keep making political videos, I thought it would be a good idea to share my own insights on how to combat those who hate freedom. So, with that in mind, I present to you my tips on how to debate a statist. The first thing to always remember is that your goal isn't necessarily to convince the statist in question to change to your way of thinking. In fact, very few times will this ever happen, so few that it will simply be a pleasant surprise if it does. No, your goal is two main things. First, it is for the reasonably open-minded viewer who is curious about these matters and is watching both of you go at it to see who seems like they know what they're talking about. So your goal is to ensure that to this observer that he sees you providing with evidence and backing your claims while your opponent is resorting to threats and emotional appeals. The second goal is the hope that while your opponent won't listen to reason now, someday when his ideology fails or betrays him, as it inevitably will since it's not sustainable, he'll think back and realize he had the knowledge he needed but didn't act on it and has no one to blame but himself for his situation. Hopefully, humility thus gained, he may even come back and be more willing to listen. Remember, to advocate these principles has an element of triage to it. You can't save everyone, nor should you try to. Put out the information and let them use it if they have the wisdom to, and if they don't, well, then those who won't learn from reason will learn from consequences. Trouble yourself no further on the matter. Secondly, try to debate on relatively even ground. Don't try to debate statists in a pro-state forum because if a statist has gangs of other statists cheerleading him, you're wasting your time. But also, don't have people on your side cheerleading you either, because then the statist is going to feel ganged up on and he's going to throw up the wall. You already have truth on your side. You don't need to take unfair advantages. Now, with the stage set, here's how to save yourself some time when you're given the ab-brat arguments, i.e., already been refuted 1,000 times. Let's just take the classic example of, what about the roads? Okay, don't repeat the same answer again, as they'll usually go in one ear and out the other. Most statists are not interested in the answer. They're just hoping to gotcha you, so here's how to call them out on it and turn it around. So, they think they've got you here? Well, let's say this. Are you saying that libertarians have never considered that question and have no answers to it? If they say no, then they're admitting that the answer's out there, but they couldn't be bothered to look it up. If they say yes, just do a quick Google search and show them how wrong they are. So you say, given that we've just established that you did no research whatsoever on my position, yet you smugly claim it's wrong nonetheless, care to explain yourself? Here's where you can and should lecture them on their laziness and their lack of curiosity. Make sure to hit home the fact that speaking about matters that one knows nothing about is dangerous and has ruined or even ended human lives. It is a very serious matter, and you should make all efforts to enforce that. How many people, for example, have died needlessly to illnesses because certain celebrities took it upon themselves to talk about vaccines despite having done no research on them? It's no game. Human lives depend on truth, and people who muddy the truth do humanity no favors. If people who preach statism is necessary and it turns out they're wrong, that's blood on their hands. Sure, the opposite is true for my position as well. That's why I'm careful to ensure I have it right and I keep my personal feelings out of the matter. Next point, do not allow the statist to gish gallop. Pardon me a sec. Sorry, it's dry out here. Do not allow the statist to gish gallop. The statist is a tiresomely predictable opponent. On some level, they know their arguments hold no water, and thus they must avoid scrutiny at all costs. The typical technique employed is the gish gallop. The statist will want to throw out tons of points, allowing no time to analyze any particular one, and just throw out accusations at you in hope of keeping you on the defensive so that his position simply gets to win by default because you weren't able to answer everything he throws out. Even if you do, he'll just hit you with endless yes but, yes but, yes but, yes but, until you relent, at which point he crowns himself the victor despite having learned nothing whatsoever from the debate. This is where you must be firm. Do not let the statist do this. Head that off right at the pass. The moment he tries to jump to another topic, constantly pull him back and insist on analyzing the first point, refusing to move until that point has been sufficiently discussed. They'll try to dodge questions, call them out and insist they come back and answer it. After all, if the statist truly is knowledgeable about the subject, he should have no fear of it being questioned. This will serve to reveal that the statist is not thinking, only repeating. Remember, nobody believes in statism because they've analyzed the principles and data and found it to be the logical answer. They believe because they were taught to believe and because they fear social or economic consequences for disbelief. Either it brings up uncomfortable questions about their family and friends, they fear ostracism, or they're just on the dole and are looking to defend their gravy train. Now, when analyzing points, the first question to always ask, how do you know? Remember when Sargon claimed that government armies are better because they're not in it for the money? There's that question that I asked in my rebuttal to him. How do you know? There's no evidence given supporting this claim, and given that I'm reasonably sure that Sargon is not telepathic, it begs the question of how he would have such insight even if it were true. So it's clear Sargon didn't come up with that argument on his own based on any kind of reasoning or research. He simply heard it before, thought it sounded smart, and threw it out in order to mask his ignorance. So, always remember this question first and foremost. How do you know? It's not a hard or unreasonable question after all. Ask it anytime someone makes a claim. When they shrug and stare into space, you'll know how informed they actually are. Marxism itself could have been stopped in its tracks if someone had simply asked that question. The next question in your arsenal to always keep ready, compared to what? The statist will try to point out potential problems in a free society. That's not because he's truly concerned, but because he needs to take the focus off the massive, real, and undeniable problems with his own ideology. Here's an example. But we need a state because someone might invade and that would be bad. To which you should respond, compared to what? The current system in which a bunch of dirt-broke religious fanatics are being allowed to invade countries on the taxpayer's dime, and in fact, the state will aggress against anyone who tries to defend themselves. So, some crazy billionaire in a free society might invade versus a state system in which you don't even need the billionaire to invade, and in fact, the state will help you invade if it's politically expedient. I fail to see how that's any better. Or how about the ever-quaint Marxist trope, but employers will exploit the workers and that's bad. So, let's have a government who runs up deficits and forces the next generation to pay even though they didn't even get so much as a vote on the matter. Yeah, that's totally not exploitation. This serves two great purposes. First, it reveals the state to be worse than even a theoretical scare story that hasn't even been proven to have merit, and it reveals the statist as a hypocrite for feigning concern about a matter only to conveniently let the state off the hook. As I once said, when Walmart starts wars that kills tens of millions of people, then you can talk to me about the evils of capitalism, not before. Now, most contenders will simply back out when you question them and refuse to let them lead you around. But what do you do when you find the odd one who is actually willing to engage you? Well, one of my favorites is the roleplay. Let's take this example. But in free market healthcare, someone will invent a cure for cancer and gouge everyone for it, and that would be bad. Okay. Let's construct that scenario from the ground up and see how it would work. Let's say you're the CEO of asshole pharmaceutical company. How would you accomplish this scheme? This is effective because hopefully it helps someone see that asserting something is a lot easier than actually putting it into practice. Here's the role play in full just to give you the idea. Let's start from the research. How much do you spend on research and development to make this cure? $10 billion? Something like that would probably be bare minimal. Okay. So how much does it cost you to make each pill? For a new drug, let's say it costs $1,000 to make each pill and you plan to sell them for 10 times the market price, like 1,000% markup. Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, let's do the numbers. You want to sell it at a crazy high price so only the rich can afford it. America's population is currently 319 million. If only the richest 1% can afford your pill, and let's say 1/3 of Americans have some form of cancer to be generous. So that'll net you $1 billion in change. Result, you're now $9 billion in the hole and the country hates you. This is not exactly the money tree you thought, was it? You can let them pick the numbers themselves if they want. Typically, their ideas are so off base that even the most generous estimations won't work in their favor. Now here's where you can explain the realities of how business works and how they really ought to have researched it before they make these claims. You see, in reality, you rarely can get away with charging more than 3% markup. Maybe 5% if you're dealing with a very new product that no one else is familiar with, but you can't do more than that because you'll just be undercut in some capacity, even if not directly. Even if not in this situation, it doesn't matter how desperate people are. If they can't afford it, they can't afford it, and they'll just stick with chemo or whatever else they have on hand. This plan would never be approved by any board of directors, even if the CEO and everyone running the business was a complete cretin. Not just because the numbers don't add up, but because of the bad PR it would generate. PR is in fact very important to a business, and any entrepreneur will tell you that. Even if you make lots of profit in the moment, if you screw people over in the process, the bad PR will only kill your profits later. CEOs are not stupid. They know this stuff, and the idea that you are wiser than them, armed with nothing but 5 minutes of casual off the top of your head thinking, is just madly vainglorious. It's irritating but true. Many people do base their views of business and entrepreneurs from the villainous depictions seen in movies and TV. It's important to point out that this is like watching Indiana Jones and thinking that it's an accurate depiction of archaeology. The reason we support capitalism is because all these checks and balances that I describe occur only when there is competition. For quality to improve, there must be competition, and that is why we oppose government, because it has no competition. Everything the government tries to control sucks. Well, thank you for all your attention, and please, if you have a free market scare story you'd like Roleplay to help you debunk it, run it past me and I'll see about doing it. Until next time, be aware and be wise.